Far away, beyond the hills and rivers, there was a forest known as the Whispering Forest. People said the trees could talk, but not with words. They whispered in the wind, telling stories of peace and dreams. In this forest lived two gentle souls. One was Liora, a kind-hearted wanderer with eyes that sparkled like the morning dew. The other was Aelric, a soft-spoken dreamkeeper who carried a small wooden flute that sang like the night breeze. Liora often walked through the tall grass, listening to the rustling leaves. She believed every tree carried a secret, waiting for someone to hear. Aelric, on the other hand, believed the forest was alive with dreams. He would sit under the glowing moon and play his flute, sending soft notes into the night. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky with shades of pink and orange, Liora and Aelric met under a great oak tree. The air was calm, and a soft golden glow filled the forest. "Do you hear them?" Liora asked, smiling gently. Aelric nodded. "Yes, the whispers are calling tonight. They are asking us to follow," and so, hand in hand, they stepped deeper into the forest, following the path of soft whispers. The forest welcomed them with warm light, soft winds, and the sound of hidden streams. Every step felt like walking into a dream. Liora felt her heart calm. Aelric felt his flute hum with the rhythm of the forest. Together they were about to begin a journey unlike any other, a journey of whispers, peace, and timeless wonder. The deeper Liora and Aelric walked into the Whispering Forest, the softer the world around them became. The sounds of the outside world, footsteps, busy winds, even the distant calls of birds slowly faded away. In their place came something lighter, like gentle breaths flowing through the trees. The leaves shimmered as though moonlight was hiding inside them. Whenever the wind touched the branches, they whispered together like 1,000 quiet voices telling the same story. Liora closed her eyes for a moment. "It feels like the forest is guiding us," she whispered to Aelric. Aelric lifted his flute and let out a soft note. The sound blended with the forest whispers. Strangely, the trees seemed to answer him. The leaves above swayed, and the air around them glowed faintly silver. "See," Aelric said softly, "they are alive. They know we are listening step by step." The two friends followed the glowing path. Sometimes the forest floor shone with tiny sparks of light, as if the stars themselves had fallen and scattered along the ground. Other times, the air carried the scent of wildflowers, fresh and calming, like a blanket of comfort. As they walked, Liora began to notice something unusual. Every tree they passed seemed to lean slightly toward them, as if bowing in quiet greeting. The branches stretched out gently, not to block their way, but to guide them forward. "It feels like they trust us," Liora said softly. Her voice carried no fear, only calm wonder. Aelric nodded. "Because we came with open hearts." The forest soon opened into a small clearing. In the middle stood a circle of stones covered in moss. Between the stones grew flowers that glowed like little lanterns. A stream trickled nearby, its water so clear that the moonlight reflected on it like silver glass. Liora stepped closer, kneeling beside the flowers. She touched one gently, and instead of bending under her hand, the flower seemed to rise a little taller, as though greeting her. Aelric's flute gave a soft hum without him even blowing into it. He looked at Liora, surprised. "The forest is speaking through us now," he said. For a while they simply sat in silence. The clearing was not empty. It was alive with the quiet presence of something greater. The whispers filled the air like a lullaby, wrapping around them both in peace. That night under the silver sky, Liora and Aelric felt the truth. The whispering forest had chosen them to hear its deepest song. The night deepened, yet the whispering forest glowed as if holding a light of its own. The stars above shone brightly, but the whispers from the trees were stronger than ever, guiding Liora and Aelric towards something hidden. The clearing they had found seemed only the beginning. At the edge of the glowing flowers, a narrow path of silver mist appeared. It twisted gently, like a ribbon floating in the air. Without speaking, both knew this was the way forward. Liora stepped first, her hand brushing against the mist. It felt soft, like warm silk. Aelric followed, his flute humming quietly in his hand. The path wound deeper into the forest, where the trees stood taller and closer together, forming a grand archway above their heads. Here, the whispers were no longer scattered voices. They sounded like a chorus, soft, layered, and soothing, as if the entire forest was singing one song. Suddenly, the trees opened into another hidden place. This time, it was a wide meadow, bathed in a gentle glow. At its centre stood the oldest tree they'd ever seen. Its trunk was wide, its branches stretched endlessly, and its leaves shimmered like tiny pieces of glass. Liora placed a hand over her heart. This must be the heart of the forest. Aelric nodded, his voice low and filled with wonder. The whispering tree. The great tree's branches swayed without any wind. A deep, calm sound filled the meadow, like the echo of 1,000 gentle voices blending into one. The tree was speaking, not with words, but with feelings. Liora closed her eyes. She felt warmth spread through her chest, as though the forest was embracing her. She felt the stories of the trees, the rain they had drunk, the winds they had danced with, the stars they had watched for endless nights. Aelric lifted his flute again. This time, he did not play a melody. Instead, he held it close, and the instrument began to sing on its own. A soft, low note floated into the air, weaving with the whispers of the great tree. The meadow glowed brighter. Tiny fireflies rose from the grass, circling them like falling stars. The entire forest seemed to be awake, listening and joining in the harmony. Then, something magical happened. The great tree lowered one of its glowing branches toward them. At the tip of the branch, a drop of silver light formed. It floated gently, like a tear of pure peace. The light hovered between Liora and Aelric, waiting. It was a gift. Both looked at each other, their eyes wide but calm. A drop of silver light formed. It floated gently, like a tear of pure peace. The light hovered between Liora and Aelric, waiting. It was a gift. Both looked at each other, their eyes wide but calm. Together they reached out their hands. The silver light rested softly in their palms, warm and alive. The forest had chosen them not only to listen, but to carry its light within. The silver light rested softly in Liora and Aelric's hands. It was small, no larger than a raindrop, yet it glowed so warmly that it lit the entire meadow. For a long moment neither of them spoke. They simply felt its gentle rhythm, like the heartbeat of the forest itself. Liora's voice was quiet, filled with awe. "It feels alive," Aelric nodded. "It is more than a gift. It is trust." As they held the light together, the whispers of the forest grew calmer, almost like a sigh of relief. The branches above swayed gently, and the meadow shimmered with soft colours. Greens, blues, and silvers blended like a dream. Suddenly, the silver drop began to divide. From one glowing light, two formed, each drifting softly into their hands. Liora's light pulsed slowly, like a lullaby, while Aelric's light hummed faintly, as though it carried a song. The whispering tree's deep voice filled their hearts again, not with words, but with meaning. "You are now keepers of our peace. Carry this light wherever shadows fall. Let it calm the restless, guide the lost, and bring rest to those who wander." Liora felt her eyes grow heavy, not with sleep, but with deep calmness. She understood. The light was a piece of the forest's endless peace, meant to be shared. Aelric gently raised his flute. As he played, the glowing drop in his hand brightened, and the melody spread across the meadow like ripples in water. The fireflies joined in, swirling in patterns that danced with the music. Liora held her light close to her heart. The glow seeped through her, filling her chest with warmth and quiet strength. She whispered softly, "I will carry this always." Together they stood under the great whispering tree, their light shined gently. Around them, the forest grew still. The whisper softened until there were no more than a faint hum, like the final notes of song. The tree's branches stretched higher, its leaves glowing the final shimmer of silver, before fading back into stillness. The meadow slowly darkened again, yet Liora and Aelric's lights kept glowing softly, guiding the way. Hand in hand, they stepped back onto the misty path. The forest no longer whispered directions, but they no longer needed them. They carried forest's voice inside their hearts now. As they walked, the silence around them was not empty. It was full of peace, full of promise, full of the soft gift they had been given. The whispering forest had given them more than light. It had given them a purpose. The misty path carried Liora and Aelric gently out of the meadow, as though the forest itself was guiding them back. Yet something was different now. They no longer felt like visitors wandering through a secret place. They felt like part of the whispering forest itself. Their silver lights glowed softly in their hands, never fading, never burning too brightly. The warmth they carried filled them with a sense of calm that seemed endless. As they reached the edge of the forest, dawn was breaking. The first colours of morning, soft pink, golden yellow and pale blue, painted the sky. The whispering forest stood tall and silent behind them, but in that silence they could still hear the faint hum of its song inside their hearts. Liora turned back one last time. The trees were still, yet she felt as if they were watching, waiting, trusting. "We will not let you down," he whispered. Aelric nodded, raising his flute. A gentle note flowed into the air, soft as a breeze. For a moment the branches seemed to stir as if answering, then all was quiet again. The two friends walked down the hills, their light glowing faintly even under the rising sun. The world outside the forest was just waking up. Birds were calling, rivers were flowing, and people were beginning their day. But for those who carried restless hearts, sleepless minds, or weary souls, something was about to change. That very evening Liora met a child who could not sleep. His small face was troubled, and his eyes carried shadows of worry. Liora knelt beside him, holding her silver light close. As she whispered gentle words, the glow brightened slightly. The child's breathing slowed, his eyes softened, and soon he drifted into a peaceful sleep. At the same time, in another village, Aelric sat by a fire where travellers rested. Some were weary, their minds heavy with endless thoughts. Aelric lifted his lute. The melody that poured out was different now, calmer, deeper, touched by the forest's gift. As the tune floated through the night air, travellers' eyes grew heavy, their hearts unburdened. One by one they slipped into dreams, resting more deeply than they had in years. The silver lights worked gently, never forcing, only soothing. Wherever Liora and Aelric went, they carried the quiet magic of the whispering forest. And though many people never saw the forest itself, they felt its whispers through these two gentle souls, through the glow, through the song, through the peace that spread like ripples across the world. The whispering forest had shared its heart, and now its whispers lived on forever,